everybody, it's Eric Pappenfuss. It's Friday, so it must be a buy day. And today, Olivia, we're going to talk about the great German archaeologist, Heinrich Schliemann. Have you heard of Heinrich Schliemann? Well, he is the man responsible for discovering Troy and other famous discoveries like the Mask of Agamemnon and all sorts of amazing things in the late 19th century. The reason we're going to talk about him today is because a customer just came to Book Buy just last week with a big stack of his books. And in addition to being a sort of multimillionaire businessman and amateur archaeologist, he also took a great interest in producing beautiful books. And these are some of the most beautiful books from late sort of 19th century America and Britain. You want to see them? Okay, all right, let's get them out. We were fortunate because the gentleman in question came in and brought us 3 of his books. Schliemann actually produced even more than 3, and I'll walk you through them a little bit so you can get the sense of what they are. Mycenae, Ilios, and Tiryns. Look at how beautiful these books are, Olivia. They're gorgeous, they're lovely, they have these wonderful designed covers. And they are absolutely jam-packed with illustrations. We're going to start with this one, Ilios. And the first thing you need to know is this is the American printing of this book, all right? This is published in accordance with Harper Brothers. This is about 1880. Let's get the date. It's right here. Yep, 1880. And this is after Schliemann has finished his excavations at Troy. The results of the researches from the year 1871, 72, 73, 78, and 79. So this is it. This is the culmination of all his digging. Here is a picture of Troy as it was discovered by Schliemann, a big mound, and he determined that in that mound were all sorts of different layers of past civilizations going all the way back to Troy. Now, at the time, Troy was known as the site of the Iliad, of course, which I'm sure you read in school, but it was not clear to those in the 19th century whether or not it was real. Like, did this really exist, or was Homer a work of fiction? And Schliemann believed it did exist, and he, along with several other archaeologists who were sort of searching Turkey, the west coast of Turkey, for places that might correspond, and he found this mound, and he determined, well, this was going to be Troy, and he got incredibly lucky. But back to the books for a second, all right? Now, this is the American version. The American version was published in red. It's pretty attractive, right? I brought you some pictures of the other versions. He was so popular that he published a blue version in England and a gray version in Germany. And these books are just gorgeous. They were designed by a Scotsman, Hallam Murray, who is part of the British publishing firm John Murray. And then John Murray published the British version and then licensed it to Harper in the United States and to a publisher in Germany and to France. It was published all over the world. So you're looking at an international bestseller, Olivia. And at the time, this would have been the most complex, the most beautiful, the largest book of archaeology at the time. There was a renewed interest in the late 19th century in archaeology. And come closer to this book, and I'll flip through, and I'll just show you that, it's just filled with page after page after page of illustrations and discoveries that Schliemann made. This would be a pretty amazing thing to read, especially at this point, since so little was known about those cultures in this era. What is interesting about this book, which is his sort of, masterwork, is that it also includes his autobiography. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Schliemann because all that we know about Schliemann is here in the autobiography at the beginning of the book. And the first thing you need to know is that he was a self-promoter. He was sort of the P.T. Barnum of his day. He was a businessman who made millions trading in indigo, the dye, and also in he did sort of war profiteering during the Crimean War, selling the ingredients for gunpowder and other things. And he was based first in Germany and then later in Amsterdam and then eventually in Russia. And he even goes to the United States. Why? Because in 1850, where would you make your fortune? You'd make your fortune in the California gold rush. And so there's this wonderful passage in his autobiography. His brother was already out there. He goes out there, and he's in California then on the 4th of July, 1850, when it was made a state and he became an American citizen at that time, which is sort of cool. Now, what did he do in California? He opened a bank. That's really what you want to do. You get all the prospectors to bring you their gold dust, and then you weigh it and measure it, and you give them money for it, and then you keep the gold. He was very much into gold, except he sort of got run out of town doing to do with questions about weights and measurements. It was perhaps not an entirely above board act. What I'm basically trying to get at here is that Schliemann was really interested in money and gold, and his approach to archaeology was very similar. So after he's in America for a while, and after he makes his fortune after the Crimean War, he then goes in search of gold. And the real reason he's going to try and find Troy, and should we get an image of what he finds? Yes. The real reason he goes to Troy is because he is looking, Olivia, for what he calls Priam's treasure. Now, Priam was the head of Troy, and Helen, who was captured and started the Trojan War. I won't get into the whole detail. Was said to be the most beautiful woman in the land, and she had gold jewelry. And this is what we were looking for. And in order to get there, to the astonishment of today's modern archaeologists, Schliemann used his love of gunpowder and exploration to just simply blast through that mountain that you saw at the beginning, creating what he called the Great Central Trench, which is basically a gigantic hole that rips through the mountain, rips through centuries, millennia of history. Unfortunately, Schliemann thought that since the Trojan War was a long time ago, that the gold, which was really what would be at the bottom, right, Olivia? He didn't realize that the bottom was actually a civilization that pre-existed Troy. And the middle, Troy was really in the middle. And unfortunately, most of Troy was again ravaged by Schliemann and completely destroyed. Schliemann does, however, find gold, which is amazing. And he calls it Priam's treasure, even though it isn't. And here's an example of some of the things he finds. Now imagine these illustrations in gold. And as we get to the later presentations, the illustrations get even more elaborate, but he does find this diadem, and he finds jewelry, and he just finds all this amazing gold, and he becomes world famous, and everybody lauds him and fets him and thinks he's just the greatest discoverer and the greatest of all time. And that is basically the story of Schliemann. And then the book is really a justification to defend himself against others who basically said he was just a gold digger. He was just the Indiana Jones archaeologist who was only interested in gold. He basically said, I am so rich, I have made so much money that I don't need this gold, and that basically my children have enough money, so what's going to happen is I shall never make a traffic of it. My large collection of Trojan antiquities have a value which cannot be calculated, but they shall never be sold. If I do not present them in my lifetime, they shall at all events pass in virtue of my last will to the museum of the nation I love and esteem. Interesting history about the gold, by the way, Olivia. It ends up back in Berlin. And what happens in World War II? Berlin is bombed and sacked. The Russians take the gold back to Moscow after the Battle of Berlin, and deny that they have it all the way up until the 1990s. And in the 1990s, they put it on display. So you could actually see Schliemann's gold now, but it is back in Russia, where he never intended it to be, which is sort of cool. One couple of things about Schliemann. He not only dug at Troy, but he also dug at Mycenae, which was the historic home of Agamemnon. And Agamemnon features, of course, into the Iliad as well. And the real issue is, as he digs there, he finds all sorts of incredible things, including these wonderful bulls, which he, of course, thinks are linked to the centaur. Are you familiar with the centaur and the labyrinth? And he also finds the famous mask of Agamemnon. If you've ever seen that, it's a gold death mask. Now, he calls it the mask of Agamemnon. It wasn't Agamemnon's mask, but he raided a burial pit and he found a mask. And just like it wasn't Priam's treasure, it was gold, though. Found amazing things. But he didn't act for giving them names, for publicizing them, for making people want to read about them. And that's really the story that we have here, these incredible books. Now, he goes to Mycenae because he wants to check the pottery at Mycenae to determine if the pottery matches the pottery he finds at Troy, and therefore he's going to argue that that this is his form of dating, because Mycenae was known to be a site that dated to the Trojan Wars. Unfortunately, it didn't match, and he reluctantly concluded in the end, "Oops, I dug too deep, and actually I destroyed the whole layer," which was Troy. But he only said that privately. He doesn't say that. Doesn't say that in the book. One last thing, just interesting about pottery, since it's all really about pottery. Schliemann found a very interesting symbol on a lot of the pottery, and you see that symbol there? That is what he called the swastika. And in Germany, based on Schliemann's work, they determined that, oh, well, he'd found this pre-existing Aryan race that clearly existed pre-Troy with the swastika, so they adopted the swastika, and it was based on Schliemann. Prior to that time, it had nothing but positive connotations, but sadly, Schliemann is responsible for all of his works in finding all these pottery shards. Archaeology is about pottery shards, Olivia, and there was a lot of it. Schliemann wanted the gold, but he also found the pottery shards. Let me just show you the last book here. By the time he was continuing to dig, the books are getting more elaborate, and by the middle of the 1880s, you can see that the color printing is improved. And these are just extraordinary things. So these are all the American versions of the editions. So imagine you are a young American in the 1880s, you're going to be inspired. And what you do see is renewed interest in the Iliad and the Odyssey, in classical Greek world. Schliemann's work inspires a whole generation of classic scholars. And if you come to the Midtown Scholar today, you're going to see that one of the most exciting sections we have is our classic section, where you can buy just pretty much any version of the Iliad you could ever want, from leather-bound to vellum to English translations to Latin to Greek. It's really pretty cool. So if you're a classicist, you owe something to Schliemann. Today he is considered, he's basically vilified by the architectural profession as being exactly what you don't want to be. As an archaeologist, he didn't really keep notes. He was just looking for treasure, but he did produce amazing books. He did inspire, and he did make some incredible finds, almost in spite of himself. Heinrich Schliemann. Okay, we're going to end with a funny book. Let's see if you find it funny. It's all about the pottery, well, we've got this one in our scholar thing. It's Sex Spots, Eroticism in Ceramics, and I really enjoy this book because one of the aspects of the pottery, forget the swastika, is that the pottery often depicted, shall we say, quite a lot of phallic imagery and symbols, and to Victorian sensibilities, it was pretty cutting edge. But Sex Spots, our best named scholarly book. You can find this in the decorative art section of the upstairs Midtown Scholar. Well, that's another edition of Buy Day. Thanks for watching. These books walked in the door last week. Let's see what walks in the door this week at book buying. It's going to be exciting. I'll see you next Friday at noon and every Friday at noon for more adventures in the world of books.